Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. As you know, this is the fourth webinar in the series of 6 webinars scheduled for the Knowledge, Attitudes, and Practices webinar series. So we've already discussed what it entails, and we've already discussed issues pertaining to questionnaire design and development. And now we are moving on to sampling. And today's session is going to be hosted and presented by Paula and Monica. So Paula Martes and Monica Posada. So I'm going to hand the floor over to them, and they will take over from here. We'll be discussing sampling today. So, Paula and Monica.
Okay, thank you. Hello again. Okay, as Alicia mentioned, we are going to talk about today about the sampling. Given that this is a very important thing to have in mind when you are developing a survey, we are going to give you like a brief definition and key information about how can you select the samples for your survey. We will try to be as clear as possible. So if you can go to the next slide, Alicia. Okay. So what is the objective of this webinar is to identify the key components and basic criteria of the sampling process, considering aspects such as the margin of error and reliability. Also, we have the idea to present to you a video at the end, but given the connectivity issues, we won't be able to share with you that video, but we will send you the link to access to that to it. So the next slide, please. So there are 3 concepts very important to have in mind when we are talking about the sampling method. One of them is the sampling, that is the process of select a group of individuals from an entire population. And the second one is the universe or population, that is basically the total number of people or individuals that are in the whole area that we want to cover with the surveys that we are going to apply. And then sample is the group of individuals that we have selected, like the people that we are going to interview for our survey. So it's very important for us to have in mind all these 3 aspects during the process to implement our survey, because it will determine the quality of the information that we are going to collect in the field. So if you go to the next slide, please, Alicia. So what is sampling? So let's talk about now a basic concepts about how you can select a sampling method and what is a sample. So a sample is the group of the populations that we select to study, and the group that we are going to draw, or we are going to develop the conclusions about the population as a whole. In other words, it's a group, a specific group of people of the entire population that we are going to select as the ones that are going to provide information that will lead us to elaborate conclusions of the entire people that that is part of the areas that we want to study. And the sampling is the process that we follow to select that sample, to select that group of people. So the process of sampling is very critical when we are planning the collection of primary data, because if we select the correct sampling method and we follow up all the instruction of the methodology to select the sample, we are going to ensure the quality of the data. We are going to ensure that the data that we are collecting will let us know, to determine a very good conclusion of very good quality about the entire population that we want to analyze. Why we select a sample and not analyze the entire population? It's very expensive to analyze all the population. For example, if you have a project that is implemented in all the country, for you it will be very, very expensive to go to all the departments or all the provinces to ask every people about, or to implement in every people the surveys that you design. So that's why you select a sample, because it's cheaper, and in another way, it will let you to get the information quickly and very efficient. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So when we are discussing about the sampling method, it's important to define first the sample frame. And the sample frame is basically a list of every member of the population, or a list of every communities that are in the areas that you are going to study. For example, if you have a project that is implemented in 2 provinces, your sample frame is going to be the list or the map of all the communities, or of all, and if possible, all the members of the population in these specific areas. So it is important to have all this information, because it will let you to later to select the specific cases that where you are going to implement your survey. So it's important to have in mind that in some countries it's very difficult to have information or list of every member of the population, especially if the country doesn't collect population census of the population in a very regular way, when you don't have access to this kind of information, you can do a map of the communities of the areas that you are going where you are going to implement the project, or of the no, sorry. And then it is important, and the lots, yes, thank you. And or also you can do a map of all the lots of that are in each of the communities where you want to implement the survey. So it's another way that you can define the sample frame, or you can construct or build your sample frame. And then when you have your sample frame developed, you need to determine the sample size. And the sample size is calculated using equations specific to the type of the survey that we are going to implement, and specific to the methodology or the sampling methods that you are going to implement. We are going to share with you later some links on some websites when you can include the basic information that you have about your sample frame, or the number of communities, or the number of lots of the area, and then they will help you to estimate the sample size. And otherwise, it will be like a very complicated to do it manually, to do the calculation using these statistical equations. Just we are going to share with you these tools. And also, depending of the sampling method, some sampling method like the one that is going to explain Monica, already defines a sample size that you need to follow. And so it is very important, to summarize, very important. The first step that you need to do is to define your sample frame, and then to determine the sample size. So if you can go to the next. So when you are choosing your sample method, you need to determine if this is going to be a probabilistic sampling method or a non-probabilistic sampling method. It's especially important for you to define what kind of what kind of survey you are going to select in the community. If you are thinking about more like an interview to key persons or to key people in the communities, probably you're talking more about a non-probabilistic sampling method. That is more for qualitative studies because you are going to select previously the people that you are going to interview. For example, not all the cases, as we can see here, have the same chance of being selected because you are going to determine previously what kind of people you need for your research or for your study. But if you are thinking about a household survey or a survey that is going to, that you want to implement to have an idea of what is happening in the community, what is what is the situation, what is the concept of the community, you are thinking more about a probabilistic, to choose a probabilistic sampling method that is more for quantitative studies. That is probably the most common type of surveys that we implement in the organization. In this, when we select a probabilistic sampling method, we need to ensure that all the cases have the same chance or the same probability of being selected. And for that, we need to be like blind when we are selecting the cases. We cannot decide previously that we want to interview a specific person in the community. We can identify, for example, the list of communities where we are going to implement and the profile of the people that we are going to select to implement the survey. But we cannot say the specific persons that we are going to select in the community. We know we can go to the file with an idea of the profile of the people that we are going to select, but not with the names of these people. We need to be blind when we are selecting these cases. So when we select a probabilistic sampling method, we pursue a statistical inference. We pursue that they will be statistical significant. I mean that the results that we are going to get will be like the results of the entire population. But in the non-probabilistic sampling method, it's more like we are going to have a result for a specific type of people. So in the probabilistic sampling method, you will require larger samples. And in the non-probabilistic, you will require samples with few number of cases that will be the specific people that you are going to select to carry on the study. So we want to give like a clear, to provide a difference of these two kind of sampling methods that you can use. And you can choose the ones that will be more accurate for your kind of studies that want to do. If you can go to the next slide. Perhaps we can go to the other one because I think that we are out of time. So it is important also to have in mind the margin of error that we are going to and the reliability of our survey. So the margin of error is what your result has an error of no more than a specific percent. So as we are talking about to select a sample of an entire population, we will always have a margin of error. But what we want is that margin of error be the smallest one possible. So when we, sorry, if someone, okay. So when we are talking of, to have on a margin of error, we will have a confidence level. Sorry, there is someone with the micro open. Thank you. So as we are going to have a margin of error in our survey, we will have a confidence level. That is the percentage confidence in the reliability of the estimate to produce similar results over time. So, for example, usually in our surveys, we want to achieve a 95% of confidence with an error of the 5%. So that one to say, this means that when we carry out the same survey 100 times, the result will be that perhaps the 95 times out of 100, our results are going to be correct. I mean, as we are not having the survey implemented in all the population, we are going to have a margin of error. I mean, that perhaps the results that we are going to get from some surveys are not going to be very accurate to the population. So it's very important for us, and to maintain this level of confidence, it is important to ensure that we are going to ensure that our sample is selected with no bias. I mean that we are blind when we are selecting the cases. That there is no intervention from us to select the kind of people that we are going to interview. So in that time, we are going to preserve this level of confidence. And this is very important to have in mind that anyway we are going to have an error in our survey, but we are going to take the necessary measures to ensure that error is the smallest possible. If you can get to the next slide. So here are some resources, some recommended websites that you can use to calculate the sample size. It's going to, these websites are a very good tool for you to determine the number of people that perhaps you are going to select to implement the survey. So it's going to ask you for information about your sample frames or the number of the total of communities that you have in the entire population that you want to analyze, and it's going to ask you for the level of confidence that usually we select the 95%, and the level of error that it will be the 5%. So now I will give the room to Monica, that is going to present to you some sampling method used in a project.
Hello everyone. Very briefly, because I know we are out of time, we wanted to talk about the experience of implementing a sampling methodology during our CAS project. As you know, the CAS project is Community Action Against Zika in 5 Latin American countries. And for the baseline survey, So for the baseline survey that we did on 2017, we implemented the LQAS methodology. What is LQAS? The acronym is for Lot Quality Assurance Sampling, and this is a methodology which was initially implemented in industrial sector, mainly to measure the quality of the products that the industry was producing in a systematic way. So later on, this industrial, let's say, approach of LQAS methodology was implemented in other sectors, especially on health sector, and that was initially implemented or extrapolated by WHO. So, as definition, is a sampling method to control whether the performance of the program reaches the pre-established levels of quality by lots or specific supervisory or supervision areas. When we can apply this methodology, because well, we need to more or less see if it's convenient or not for our programs. So it is applicable what is evaluated, that means the indicator that we want to evaluate, has only two possible values: complies or does not comply. That means that we are measuring if we are to see when is applicable to apply the methodology of LQAS. And I think about in the third point where you lost me, I was stressing that for applying LQAS, we need a probabilistic sampling. That means a randomized sample, which is what Paula just explained previously. And the fourth point is that the probability of finding one value or another, that means that the indicator complies or does not comply, is the same for each of the sample cases. So we can go to the next slide. Okay. So the LQAS methodology works dividing the geographic area where we are going to implement our project in what we call supervision areas. Each of these supervision areas is a set of communities that are under the control or the supervision of a specific person. Can be a technician, can be a coordinator. In our case, in the KAP project, for example, was a coordinator. So we called each coordinator of the supervision area to be the focal point to implement the baseline survey. So how to ensure that the good operation of the LQAS methodology? So how to ensure that LQAS is, first of all, we need to identify the universe to which it will be applied the survey. That means all the, as Paula explained before, the entire population that lives under the geographic area where we are implementing the project. Then we need to define the sample to be selected within of the defined universe. In our case, the specific sample that where we wanted to implement the KAP survey were women of age between 15 and 49 years. And well, the reasons behind selecting this specific target audience was because we wanted to, our KAP survey was surrounding themes like you know, information about the Zika virus, about the risk of getting infected when pregnant, the use of condoms during pregnancy to protect from virus, etc. The third point will be to identify field staff in charge of leading the application of activities. In this case, as we just mentioned, it will be the technicians or the coordinators of the supervision areas. Then we will look for household information. That means, as Paula also mentioned before, to have those community maps, the census of countries, the sketches of the communities, all the information that can provide us where are the households that we are going to interview, to map out later where are we going to do the surveys. And finally, we are going to do the the full random selection, that means the random sample of the interviews or the KAP surveys that we are going to implement in each supervisory area. We can go to the next slide, please. So for the LQAS methodology, we are just selecting 19 households by random sampling. So once we have the supervision areas defined, that means, for example, in Colombia, that is one of the countries of the CAS project, once we are clear that which supervision areas we are going to use to implement the survey, let's say Department 1 and Department 2 as supervision areas, then we proceed to collect from each of them a random sample of 19 observations or households in our case. That means that for each supervision area, we just select through a random sample 19 houses. So why 19? Because it has been studied, or it has been observed that having 19 observations or 19 implementations of the survey, it's proven that it's the minimum number that guarantees representativeness of the universe study with more than 90% of accuracy. This number of observations, we can have a screenshot of what happens at. So these 19 observations can give us the general picture or the screenshot of what happens at the level of the whole population, so the universe that we're going to study. And it's enough to represent the whole population that we want to, to survey or to study. So for the LQAS methodology to work, it is necessary that the observations to collect in the field are completely selected through random sample from start to the end. So let's say that this is the condition, the very primary condition to apply LQAS, that these 19 observations or households that we want to select are selected through random sampling. And the next slide. The link I have shared you through chat is the link of the whole video. This video is about 20 minutes because it's a tutorial of how to implement LQAS in a baseline study. So it's divided by chapters. The chapter that we are seeing right now is the chapter of sampling. So this video will basically give you the very simple and basic instructions of how to select these 19 households. You see? Well, the video is a little bit slow, but it's just to give you an idea of the tool that we have available in the federation. This was done by the CAS, produced by CAS project, and it talks about what is LQAS. It tells you how to use the randomized sampling, how was the experience of doing this sampling at community level, how to divide the geographic areas into supervision areas. We have testimonies of the people talking about how they choose the blocks, what happened when you don't find a house with the target audience that we are, or with the criteria that we are looking for. So how to jump through the next household and how to do it. And basically it has the main instructions of applying LQAS. The video is not there. You have also a link with more information. That's the LQAS methodology. Then you have the step 4 and defining how we are going to gather the data using ODK, but that's another theme, that's another chapter, and I think that's another webinar. So I'm not jumping into this. But I really recommend you to use this video. Also, it's really cute. But really, it has a very clear information step by step of how to do a baseline. So yeah, I just wanted to share this tool with you, and I think that's the end of my presentation and the end in general of our webinar. So Alicia, I don't know if now it's time for questions.
Yes. Can everybody hear me? Hi, can everybody hear? All right, so now we're going to turn the floor over to you, the participants, to pose your questions. You can send questions through the chat feature, and Monica and Paula will be able to respond to you. I mean, we have 8 minutes left, so we have plenty of time to address a few questions. Questions from anybody? So, Monica and Paula, I know that we had, okay, all right, Kat, you can go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. So I presume that LQA's method to start the sampling is the preferred way, regardless of the size of the community?
Okay. Yes, in the CAS project, when we reach to communities very big, with a very big size, you can select more than one supervision area. So what we tried to do, it was to create supervision areas in different sides of the community that perhaps have similar socioeconomic conditions, or that perhaps the technician has divided the work that he or she do in that particular community, because otherwise it will be like very difficult when you select only 19 cases, because as you select the cases in a random way, perhaps you are going to have an observation to be selected in point A, and then in the point another in the point B that is too far away. So in order to avoid that, we try to create in the biggest communities a couple of more supervision areas in order to ensure that part. Yeah. But this is explained more in detail in the videos, because in the different videos of the web of the tutorials that Monica shared, and also in a writing manual that the project developed also for this. I don't know, Monica.
Another question from Jaime was, I would like to know how you calculated the 19 household sample in the CADRIM project.
Okay, the sample size it comes with the method. I mean, the method established that by each supervision area that you develop, that you identify, you are going to select 19 cases. The key here is how you are going to construct these supervision areas. In the CAS project was pretty easy, because the project has different coordinators of technicians in the field. So as this method helps you to monitoring the compliance and of the project, or the advance of the level of advance of the project, for us it was very easy to select that the supervision areas will be the areas covered by this technician. About guidelines, the videos that we have, that the project has, are in Spanish but have subtitles in English. The other manuals that we have is in Spanish. right now, but perhaps we can see if it's possible to translate to English, but we don't know.
Yeah. I think right now it's a bit difficult to translate it into English, but of course you can have it in Spanish, and perhaps someone can, you have the resources or people that can translate it, because it's a really useful manual actually.
And it's very short, because what we find out in the project when this methodology was going to be implemented is that a lot of the manuals for this particular methodology were very long and very complicated to understand. They were manuals from the World Bank for the World Bank that they implement this kind of methodology in some of their projects. So what we did was to create a more user-friendly manual to explain the methodology. But sadly, it's only in Spanish, but perhaps we can find a way how to translate it into English with the support of you or for other people.
Yeah, if you search online, you have, first of all, few information, and then a little bit, it's not very specific. So I think with the manual that we created for the CAS project, you can have a more applied way of understanding LQIS for our programs, in specific for the movement projects. LQIS methodology can be used also in emergency settings or emergency response scenarios, where we can reduce the both human and economic resources by doing a small sampling. So it's it's quite convenient. We are now in the process of ending the midterm review, the midterm evaluation of the project. That means the mini-CAP, using the same methodology, and we are going to do the end-line survey using the same methodology. And so far, it has been successful.
The supervision area and the 19 households as automated sampling process. I mean, you implement the sampling process specifically on how you are going to select the 19 households, because the supervision areas is like a mapping that you do of the different communities or the different areas that you have in your project, and you determine on how many supervision areas can you divide that entire list of communities. And then you need to ensure that the 19 cases are selected in a random way. Yeah. That's the key part, because as we are talking about a very small sample, if we don't ensure randomness in the selection of these cases, the method, the LQIS, is not going to work. I mean, you are not going to have very accurate information. And another thing to mention about this method is that it will help you to monitor your project. In what sense? In the sense that you can have an analysis if each supervision area complies or not with the targets that you have for a specific indicators that you want to measure with this study or with the HAP survey. So it is very good, because later you can say, for example, the supervision areas of this specific community are not reaching the target, or are very low of the target of these specific indicators. So, for example, for CAS, it was very helpful because it allowed you to identify the areas or the communities that need more support or more technical support or more monitoring from the regional technicians here in the office.
Yeah, for example, if you can see if the level of knowledge is the same, or it has increased on specific subjects like, I don't know, Zika transmission knowledge. So you can go more specifically by areas. And regarding the Humphrey's question about what do you mean by supervision areas? Well, it's like a cluster, but it's not really a cluster. The principal criteria is that it's a geographical area with one person who is the in charge or the coordinator of that area. That means that monitors that area. So a supervision area can be a set of communities, or can be a community, or can be some lots from a community. You decide how you want to interpret that supervision area.
We give some examples in the tutorial, in the video, and also in the in the manual that is now in Spanish,
which I am trying to share with you.
Yes.
But
Monica is going to share with you the manual because right now in the chat we cannot upload the PDF.
But I'm sending you now the link to the Google Drive, and this is the guide, okay?
It's very, very short. I think that it's 20 pages or 50 pages. And also that manual has links, for example, for some templates in Excel that can help you to determine where are you going to select the cases. It's to determine the sample collection. Yeah. We try to make more easier all the information that we found about the LQIS online from another organization, because it was very hard to understand, and it was a very, very special way when we tried to find out how to implement in the project, but at the end, the results were very, very good. Very good.
Can you share the correct link?
I don't know if you have any other questions.